Join two sisters who explore the couples that fandoms adore. We write their stories in the night, in the glow of computer light. Eyes connect, clothing flies, in our head canon love never dies. Stencils that leave us pining, in deep forums we are mining. For this journey, better strap in, because we all know that shit happens.
Welcome to the podcast that explores the couples fans can't stop dreaming about from the pop culture you love. Because when it comes to your favorite books, ship happens.
We're your host. I'm Rachel.
And I'm Emily.
She likes nerd culture, and I like making podcasts. So we thought we'd come together like the best ships do and make a podcast about ships that fandoms love. Or in this case, kind of tolerate a little bit.
There's like a few hangers-ons.
Yeah. People are not with the times.
Won't let go.
But this is our second episode. Thank you for joining us for our second. Number 2, first is the worst, second is the best, right? But along the lines of second being the best, here is actually my favorite ship that I thought of in the time between recording the first episode and the second episode. So, the number one ship that did not happen that I 100% stand behind, I have to recant and put my full belief behind this one. And that is from The Lord of the Rings, which 3 guesses because there's only 2 female characters. And it is my girl Éowyn and the King of the West, Aragorn. As a former horse girl, I shipped them together so hard, so embarrassingly hard that the Christmas. Have we also mentioned that Emily and I are sisters? We're sisters. So she knows the Christmas I'm talking about. That was exclusively Lord of the Rings themed.
so extremely Lord of the Rings. We are from Lord of the Rings household.
Yes. Yeah. And that year I got a day calendar that was just pictures from the Lord of the Rings movies. And I threw away most of them, except for every single one that featured Aragorn and Éowyn together. And I just kept them in a special place. And I would go and flip through them and look at them and be like, yes.
What could have been?
What could have been? Because I guess I was also so brainwashed by the era that I was like, Aragorn, how could you not choose her? She's blonde.
Well, and around.
in there, yeah. I never got Liv Tyler. As we're going to find out, I don't jive with the whole elf fairy line of mythical superhumans with pointy ears.
She gave up immortality for him. I don't know. I think you had to pay attention to all the songs and stuff that were in the books. I always skip those. Any song in a book, I'm not reading it.
Exactly. I just kind of boop. Same goes with maps. I'm not a map person. And that has translated into me not being so big into fantasy as I have continued on with my life, which is very surprising considering the role that the Lord of the Rings played in my formative years. I just never became a big fantasy person.
That's true. Lord of the Rings was a big part of our childhoods, but I never let it go. I read pretty much exclusively fantasy, and I see a lot of maps. Do I ever look at them after I open the book and see that there is a map? No. Never. I love a fantasy book. I don't need a map. I don't care where they are. I'm not interested in logistics. I don't know how long it takes anyone to walk. There's no scales on these things.
Precisely, because do they use metric or do they use imperial? Nobody knows.
Or made up one. It's fantasy.
It's 5 hobbit lengths away.
Exactly. But yeah, one of my all-time favorite fantasy books with a map would be, and another YA fantasy similar to the one we're about to talk about, is 6 of Crows. It's just so good, and it was adapted into the Netflix series Shadow and Bone. This is not about what we're talking about today. This is just my own personal ship. I forgot to say that. My new ship I wanted to talk about today.
Because we're thinking we'll spice up the intro, talk about the latest ships. Obviously, the latest ships from 2005 movies that I watched.
I think, oh gosh, I want to say Shadow and Bone came out last year, or the last F season came out last year, but that might not be right. Which
I don't know in the year of 2023 or Lord. I don't know.
Yeah, the first season came out when our one cousin got married, so whenever that was, which was post-pandemic.
Let's track her down and ask her what anniversary she's on.
Who knows? At least more than one. That's a different cousin. But yes, so it was adapted in this TV show, Shadow and Bone. It has since been canceled. I will never forgive Netflix. Literally, last straw. Fuck Netflix. So something I think is kind of groundbreaking. So it's 2 books, The Six of Crows, and then The Crooked Kingdom's the second book. So I think it kind of like subverts expectations. There's 6 characters, 3 couples. One of the couples, he likes her, she likes him. They're going to get together. They're both so traumatized. I'm talking about Kaz and Inej. But at the end, Inej, a teenage girl in this book for teens, is like, actually, I'm going to bounce. She's like, I'm out of here. I got to go live my own life, and you need to work on yourself. Get a therapist, like deal with your issues. Maybe one day I'll come back, then we can be together if you've like fixed yourself.
We are both too damaged to build the foundations of a healthy relationship.
Yeah.
Like, she's the hero teen girls need.
Exactly. Like, right in this YA book, I was like, this is like groundbreaking. They did use the scene in the TV show. I'm like fully support. I'm like, hell yeah, Anish. Go live your pirate dreams.
Hell yeah.
So since the TV show adapts this book along with some of the other books this author has written, there happens to be a pirate handy. So she gets on this pirate boat, and in like the last scene of the TV show before it's canceled, never to be seen again. So a guy from one of the other books helps her, like he holds her hand, helps her onto the boat. They lock eyes, and I'm like, oh,
this
might work. And that is Tolia, who is featured in the Shadow and Bone trilogy, which I did not read. And then he shows up occasionally in the other later books I did read, but I could never really tell him apart from his twin. But he's like way beefier, way more morally sound. He's like into poetry. He's more of like a quiet, serious type, which like she's like. They're both like super good at fighting. I was like, man, like this, I'm here. I'm here for this. I could see this. And then the show got canceled, and we'll never know.
No, and it was all wrapped up in an instance of MEC, meaningful eye contact.
Yep, that was pretty much it. It was the meet cute and nothing else.
Hey, that's the best part of romance, right? So just who needs all that other stuff after? But I just think it's very interesting that they both recognized their trauma that they had been through, or at least she did. And she was like, yeah, we need to focus on ourselves and heal and grow, because that seems to be some of the complaints wrapped up in the story or the couple we're going to talk about today.
Yeah,
right?
A lot of trauma. Maybe not a lot of growth.
Yeah, I don't think so. It's a romance. I feel like this is romance foremost and fantasy second. It's a romance in a fantasy world. Is that wrong?
It might be kind of like the OG romantasy, which is a very hot on Book Talk and Bookstagram.
And I think that that's fair to point out, too, is that this is a very viral book. And I am so afraid because I'm not going to get it right. And somebody's going to be somebody. If anybody gets this, they're going to be like, oh, you're wrong. You guys are clueless.
Yeah, honestly, we were talking about this a bit in a restaurant earlier this weekend. And there was some like women around. And I just feel like the odds were. I was like, man, what if someone's over here in this conversation and just getting heated?
Yeah, probably. Because they look like they could
around, and I feel like it,
they were side-eyeing us?
I don't know, probably not. I think I just made it up because I know it's just so extremely popular.
It's so
across
popular.
Many demographics. Yeah.
And that is, of course, we're talking about the Court of Rose and Thorns. No, Thorns and Roses, right?
Yes. ACOTAR.
ACOTAR, which it's
A Court of Thorns and Roses.
But the series is called A Court ofs, I guess. I don't know.
They all are a court of something.
Echoes. Yeah.
I only hear it as ACOTAR. I just take it as the whole series, even though I guess that's just the first book.
And this is something that is newer to, like, we're not obviously very familiar with it. So we're going to try our best. But the couple that we are going to be talking about today, because remember, we are talking about the couples that fans liked, the fans love, the ones that make their hearts flutters, but they don't ever quite connect fully. And I guess when you look at this series, that is going to be the heroine Feyre and her first love interest, Tamlin. Although I could probably done a whole episode about just that farmer boy she was fucking. I feel like that's the true ship.
I mean, we could come back. There are a million books. There's like a ton of characters. And I know The author has started writing kind of spin-offs where the different side characters get together. So it's just like shipping all over the place, shipping galore. But I didn't want to get too deep into book 5 or 6. So I kind of thought maybe we could stick with the first 2.
Yeah, I did not even get that far. But she's just really squeezing every egg out of this golden goose, isn't she?
Yep. Oh, yeah.
Good for her. Good for her.
Yep. Not my cup of tea, but I respect the hustle.
You gotta respect the grind. She's like cranking them out at Stephen King levels, but...
Oh, yeah. Oh, and she's got another series. I don't know how relevant this is. She's got another series that takes place in a different world, and she's just doing like a Marvel-verse thing. I'm pretty sure in the last book, they went through a portal, showed up at Pythian, Feyland. There's like crossover characters. They're running into like Feyre's shitty sisters.
Wow. This sounds like, what is this referencing? There's like a pop culture thing where that happens. I can't remember it off the top of my head outside of the Avengers or whatever.
Yeah,
but that's
multiverse.
That's hilarious. Okay, the couple that started it all, right? Before she had all these book deals and multiverses, it was just one 500-year-old man and one teenage girl. And that is Feyre and Tamlin. Couple name. Feylin?
Feylin, Feyre,
Tamlin. Hot Mess Express, because that's kind of, I guess, what this couple turned into.
The Beauty and the Beast.
Whoa! What? I've never heard that trope before, but I have not heard too much about this book. I, of course, was aware of it, as most persons with a TikTok account are, in a passing interest in books or wanting to cosplay somebody who reads. You get on Book Talk, you get the book recs, and that's where I saw this. And you know what? I thought I would eat this shit up. The cover's really pretty, and I looked at it, and I saw one word, fairies, and I was done. I don't jive with the fairies. I'm not a Fae fan. I'm not a Fae fan.
We come from a Lord of the Rings household. I just don't get it. It's like you say fairies, you mean elves. I know you mean elves. Like, why are we pretending here?
That there's something else?
They got pointy ears. They're all beautiful. They got long hair and stuff. Fairies are a thing, you know? And these kind of fairies aren't that kind of thing.
I think that the fairies that are things are not positive, right? Like the fairies in Ireland are kind of like negative, right? They come in, they like fuck with you and stuff. You don't want the fairies.
Yes, and I'm with you about the fairies. I see a sexy fairy and I'm out. Not my kind of book. I do like when they suck though. The problem with I've been thinking about it because I like the folklore kind when they can't lie. They're like kind of beastie looking when they're here to fuck shit up. Like they stealing your kids and whatever. If that shows up in a book, I'm fine with it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's when they're just so sexy. And yeah, it's just the like idealized human. And they're just too horny for me.
I think if you lived 500 years, you probably would get over having sex at some point. I think you'd be like, okay, we get it.
Done it all.
But these are like immortal, fancy, high functioning beings. And then they're just wanting to have sex with humans. It's just like, what's left? I might as well start sticking it in all kinds of different lower life forms. But let's get into it.
I guess so.
Before we keep trashing it too much, what is the actual story here?
All right. So our actual plot, which again, I have not read, but I am a fan of fantasy. I am on like Bookstagram. I watch a lot of YouTubes about fantasy books and I listen to podcasts about books. So I've heard about this book. I listened to it at Podcast Today. Heaving Bosom to Love. It's great. So the plot of the book is that we have our heroine, Feyre, 19 years old, lives in the very sad, depressing forest with her shitty family. And they're starving to death, so she has to get out in the woods and hunt. She's the sole provider for her family, right? She's a girl who hunts, very Katniss.
Oh, I know. What? Very early 2000s, right?
Yes.
Which is when this book was
pants.
written. Ooh, no. A lady in pants.
Yep. She has casual sex, so very...
Not like the other girls?
A little bit enlightened, I guess. Anyway, so she's out there trying to, feed her family and her useless sisters, and she runs into a wolf, a very weird, gorgeous wolf that I guess she knows is a fairy. So she kills this wolf, takes the pelt back to her family, They're gonna like make a bunch of money off this pelt, and she saw it like a deer, so they're gonna eat tonight. Whoo! And then while she's hanging out with her family, door bust open. Who's there? It's a monster. Or a beast. So
what would be another word for monster?
So crazy beast character crashes through the door. It's a fairy. Turns out Feyre killed one of his buddies, and there's some sort of deal with the Fae. So it's a life for a life. But instead of killing Feyre, this fairy, Fae, whatever, is gonna take her to his home, and then she's gonna have to, like, I don't know, hang out.
He's like, you killed my best friend. Come be my roommate. Yeah. What?
They'll give you pretty dresses and like feed you and stuff. Yeah. Anyway,
he's like, he came in, he was about to smash her, and he was like, okay, this one's fuckable. I better take her back with me. Just in case.
19-year-old. So this guy we find out is Tamlin. He takes her to his home in Fae, and then they just kind of hang out and chill. So it's a Beauty and the Beast retelling. So I feel like that kind of explains the plot, basically. Eventually they fall in love. And
of course,
so this is another kind of, I'm not a big fan of fairy tale retellings. Another reason why this one's not my cup of tea. He's, I guess, a sexy man with long blonde hair. It's how you know he's not going to be the main love interest. 'Cause I feel like the blonde guys, it doesn't work out. When he's not a beast, he's a man, and he's been doomed to wear a masquerade mask. So he always has this mask on.
Is there anything worse than having to wear a masquerade mask forever? What?
At all times. Even during certain sex scenes that show up in the book.
Oh.
So I think this first book was initially sold as YA. So apparently they're not super steamy. This whole series is sold as a very steamy, sexy books, and people are a little bit disappointed because book one is not super steamy.
Yeah, it doesn't get full smut, right? Because like you said, it was YA, so it was like, will they, won't they, like the tension.
Yeah, it's implied, but it's a little bit fade to black. It's not too...
Not
on the page. So you find out, like, he had to wear this mask because there's, like, an evil sorceress fairy lady. He's been cursed.
There's
It's
like a
Beast.
plague, right? Like, the mask. I don't understand it. Somebody explain it to me.
I don't know.
I thought it was a disease. I thought it was like at the end of the day, it was like this plague mask or something. Somehow, whatever. Remember, we all wore masks to fend off diseases. So I thought it was something like that. Thought that was
it's like stuck on his face.
Oh, he can't take it off.
Maybe it's a symptom of the disease. Like instead of chicken pox, you just grow a mask.
You grow a fancy masquerade carnival mask.
Speaking of which, I think I have yours in my basement.
Why?
I think I took it when you went to college. I just like raided your room.
Oh, okay. Well, enjoy it.
Up.
It's cheap. I bought it in Venice, but it's not nice. I'm pretty sure some poor small child made it in Taiwan.
Right. So yeah, by the end of book 2, they're in love. They defeat this evil sorceress. There's a series of trials. We don't need to get into it. But during these trials, where I guess Feyre proves her love for Tamlin, she meets the dark, sexy Knight King Court guy. He has wings. Maybe in this book. Eventually he does.
I thought they all had wings. I thought that was like a... recent. Yep.
Yes. No, they don't all have wings. Just the special night one.
The high fairies? Are you sure? I don't know. Oh,
Tamlin does not have a wing.
Who doesn't? Tamlin?
Tamlin does not. The other guy in this book,
he has antlers.
Lucian does not. It's like a special kind of fairy has them.
Okay. Because I think that was important to mention. We didn't talk about this. The best thing I found out of my recaps was #beast mode is that they can transform into monsters, right? And that's why she killed the wolf, because it was really one of these handsome fae people, but he was dressed up like a wolf. He was in #beast mode, beast form, something like that. And Tamlin's is this big, sexy, let me describe it. His beast form is described as a horse-sized creature with a bear-like body that moved with a feline fluidity, a distinctly lupine head, and massive elk-like antlers. How many times can you use like in a sentence? No.
I do like the antlers. The antlers are a cool touch. A little bit different, a little bit fresh.
Than the beast from Disney's Beauty and the Beast.
Yeah, I don't know about the other fairy. Just from what I've gathered from my various podcasts and things, I don't know if anyone else really ever turns into a beast.
I heard that his beast form is super powerful, and that's one of his superpowers. Because apparently the fairies also have powers.
Like vampires.
Yes. I could not notice all of the Twilight similarities, including the fact that to save Feyre, at some point she becomes a Fae. They turn her into a high Fae to save her life. And I was like, does she have some weird pregnant baby in her belly that she's going to come out and call Tamisland or something?
I think she ends up with like all the powers actually, because she's just the most special girl.
She's the most special. Oh my goodness.
There is a pregnancy plotline. We'll get into that later. We
Oh,
talk about her
goodness.
love options. During these trials, she meets Rhysand, but we subvert expectations. By the end of book 1, like she's like hot and heavy Tamlin. It's all about Feylin. This is the ending. Because
endgame.
the author did not know she would get book 2. So book 2 rolls around. Feyre had made a deal while going through these trials with Rhysand that she would have to spend some time with him.
Like a Persephone and Hades type situation, right?
Yeah.
Like she has to come. And he's like a dark underlord. He's a night prince. Something like that, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. He's like king of the night court or something like that. Yeah.
Which I don't know what the courts are. I did my research. I never knew what the hell these there's night court and spring night court. That's a show. There's the court of the night. There's the court of spring and the court of summer, I think, and all these things.
Yeah. So I
Nobody
feel
knows
like, it's like
really-
the United States of fairy. In the different fairies.
It's a different legion of fairies.
Are these like courts? Yeah. They're just like different areas. I guess they got different like aesthetic themes, They decorate different ways.
Of course.
I think that's basically it. Yeah.
I'm in the court of millennial gray.
But yeah. Rhysand turns out to be her, I guess, fated mate. Their mating is a thing. Mates are a thing in these books. So they
Like
bond
they
or whatever.
imprinted. Wink,
Yeah.
wink, wink. Twilight shout out.
So yeah. Rhysand ends up to be the one for Feyre, but what about those fans who weren't ready to give up on Tamlin?
And those are the folks we are pandering to today.
Yeah.
And if you're like me and you don't have time to do all this in-depth research, I found the best synopsis on Reddit. And the best description I found was by user Yo Ya Rodrigo. They described the book as something like a poor, starving peasant girl kills an innocent person, and her punishment for murder is living with a hot, single king on his beautiful estate where she can do literally whatever the hell she wants, and she still finds reasons to hate everything, including her super hot fae boyfriend, right? Because the ship did not work out.
So like, what are the highlights of them together?
Yeah, so folks like it because there's some pretty good moments. And that's what I saw called out in the fandom, is that people were just really clinging to the moments that were good. And they highlighted some of the best as being, there's like a moment where a dying fairy comes in and, I don't know, somebody cut his wings off and he was dying. And this Tamlin character showed some base compassion for the dying guy, including digging a grave. So that was the first moment that Feyre was like, wow, he's maybe not so beastly after all. And throw in some instances of him saving her from monsters.
Yeah. Like the wolves in Beauty from the Beast.
Yeah, remember that? When Belle
Yeah.
ran away and then some wolves were snapping at her and the beast comes in. And guess what? Oh, he gets hurt. What? And
Oh,
then
no.
she heals him. So again, these are some familiar beats that we might have heard before. And then, of course, when you come to the romance or like the tension, the sexual tension parts, there is a scene that is called out over and over and over again. And that is where he bites her. There's like a biting scene. And I read the excerpt of it, and it's essentially Tamlin is coming back from some kind of fairy sex ritual. And he's all hyped up on fairy sex ritual night. They were all told her beforehand, stay inside, don't leave your room, keep your room locked because we can't control our sexual urges on sex ritual night. And he finds her in the hallway and he's like basically saying like, I'm looking for you. I've like wanted to get down with you. But then also mentions he'd already hooked up with somebody else. It was just strange. And then he bit her. And people were talking about that like it was a sexual awakening. It's like the height of eroticism. I did not come across to me when I read it. He bit her, and I honestly could not tell you if he was in human Fae form or if he was in beast form. And so I'm just imagining like a dog biting her shoulder, and she's like, "Oh yeah," and I think he bit her and his tongue started moving around. I don't know. Maybe I'm out of touch with what ladies like, but it did not strike any chords for me.
I think maybe if this is like, so you read a romance and the tension builds and builds and builds, and then they have like their first kiss, and it's so like
Satisfying.
Like, it's satisfying, like almost cathartic, like to read. So maybe I don't think they've kissed at this, according to the podcast I listened to today. So maybe it's like that. You've been like waiting for them to get together, and they finally acknowledge they want to bang, but then he just bites her neck instead.
Yeah, so maybe there's something with that, because I think the ladies, I say as the two women on this podcast, I think the ladies like things that are euphemisms for sex without being sex. So like the fact that it's carnal, it's passionate.
When he's a little bit more like beast, because they're Fae or whatever. So I think that the thing was he was under some sign of like Viagra or whatever, made him had to bang, and then he was running around like looking for her because she had been out and about even though they had told her not to, so he could smell her. So he was like, I gotta get with this like lady I've secretly been into, even though there's like real no reason for him to keep it a secret, because then another character tells her he's out there, he's looking for sex, and if he sees you, it's you. And she's like, well, I guess I should leave my room.
Well, I might as well get a midnight snack. Yeah. I'm like, I just feeling a little peckish.
Yeah.
And if I run into anyone, whatever happens, happens.
Yeah, you know. So maybe I guess. That. I don't know. I felt like a little bit of a context where, you're the what he wants. I don't know.
Yeah. And she was like, whoa.
You didn't know that before. Yeah.
Yeah. It was interesting. And then I think at some point she calls him out for sloppy seconds. I don't remember. Did she say sloppy seconds? Does that take you out of the fantasy world? Leftovers. Maybe she said leftovers. Something like that. Because I read the excerpt and I was just like, this doesn't feel medieval or whatever. This doesn't feel fantasy to me. But it's actually really interesting because that biting scene, while some people on TikTok make a whole big deal about it, it's actually one of the things that people will criticize him about later. So this is actually a very divisive ship, because people who liked it, and the people who don't. They're like very anti-Tamlin in the fandom, to the point where they refer to him as Tampon, which is I saw over and over again because of the events of the stories that have happened, right? If you find some old blogs from 2015, the sun rises and sets on this man. But after that, it's now not cool to be a Feylin stan, right? You have to like her new boo. And so some of the criticism that surrounds this exodus, this Tamlin exodus, on the lighter side, it's that this story is boring. He's a bit boring. The story is generic. I mean, what? This tale as old as time that we've heard over and over again?
Maybe you've heard it before.
What? Oh, it's really groundbreaking. I don't know where this comes from. So that's like that's like the people who are just like, yeah, I wasn't feeling it from the get-go. But also some people have the idea that this man is abusive, right? They don't like seeing her with him because they say that he is an abuser. And that he has, in some of the examples that they cited, was that he has an explosive temper that has caused damage to property and person. I am now a fantasy fairy lawyer. I feel like that was to persons and property, including her library or some shit like that, like literally her library, because
that might be book too. I did not listen to that podcast.
Yeah, because it wasn't enough like Beauty and the Beast. He had to bequeath her a library as well.
Because there is a library. That's like a whole reveal, I guess, in the first book. Because
she can't read. I did hear that part.
She cannot read. That is a major plot point. So she has these trials under the mountain. So and then she's gonna like fight a worm or whatever. Trial 2. So character Lucian, who's like one of her buddies, I guess. He's like about to die, and the way to save him, she has to pick one of 3 options. But the only way she knows which option to pick is by solving a written riddle. But she can't read. So Lucian's just like, just pick one, we're fucked.
Yeah, oh god.
I don't even know if like the evil lady knew that or I just
That she
so
can't
funny
read
to
it. It
me.
was just like, I'm gonna give her a softball just to get things started. And she's like,
Yeah.
what is wrong with this bitch?
Yeah, like why does it? I don't know. So
Can I
she
make
could
it
also
any
call-
more plain? See
Yeah.
spot run. Come on.
So apparently she could call it all off by solving a riddle. It's apparently pretty obvious.
And she just couldn't
Yeah.
read it.
No, it wasn't even written. She knew it. She just couldn't come up. I
not that
I should have
bright.
pulled that up. We could have.
That would be fun.
Yes.
Like, we should. We'll put it on pause at the end and see if we can solve the riddle.
Okay, I'll look it up. I know what the answer is because they made the joke in the podcast, but I'll see if you can get it. If you don't get it, I'll feel bad now.
Okay, yeah, let's do the riddle at the end. I want to see if I can
Okay.
beat a 19-year-old.
Yeah, who had 3 months to think about it?
She was in the cage for 3 months.
Yeah, so she had 3 trials and there was a solid month. They had to happen at the full moon. So she had a month between each trial. And at any point she could have answered this riddle. But she
Wow.
got it wrong if
Okay.
everyone would die. So I guess that's some pressure.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. I don't have that mentality. So let's see. Okay, we're going to save it for the end because we want to hear about what the fandom has to think about this couple. So they did not like that. And they also did not like that he was kind of controlling of her movements and activities, right? He would not let her train for battle or something. And he would not let her leave the manor, which I think these are from book 2 as well. So it was
Yeah, I
after the
think he,
first one.
Pulls a bit of a 180.
Yes, and SJM was trying to like frame the breakup, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, who doesn't have those relationships where like they set it up like one way and then they flip flop? Like that's a normal experience, I think. And that could also be explained away by the fact that what happened under the mountain, which I kept hearing about but never fully understood, has caused them both so much trauma with a capital T, and they both have PTSD that they need to work on, but they weren't.
Because they don't have, I guess, therapists in Feyland.
I guess they don't. So they were both so damaged by the situation. And instead of being like the girl from Shadow and Bone and being like, I need to like heal before I can really commit. I have to love myself first. They were just like still trying to jam that square peg into the round circle. And in the end, it ended up not working. And then the final critique that I thought was just like the most truest of true is that he's too similar to her family, her useless family. They're just like, Feyre girl, you're dating your dad. You know?
Oh, no.
It's just like he's too passive. He doesn't help you solve your problems. He's just going to let you try to solve them on your own. You're responsible for it, which, as we learned, she was the youngest of her family and somehow responsible for everything with them, including getting deer and magic wolf pelts.
True, she's just used to shouldering that responsibility. She's fell into familiar roles.
Yep, they were saying a good partner would have taken some of that burden from her. And I think that might be to the fact that she had to do these things and he did the trials under the mountain trials, and he didn't help her with them or something like that. But the people who do like Tamlin, the Tam stands, the Tam apologists, they do have good points to mention, including that a lot of people, even the ones who maybe didn't ship them together in the end, they did agree that he knows how to get down. That the fans and readers enjoyed the sexy times in the first book more than the sexy times in any of the following books in the series. It didn't live up to the smut expectations, but I think that in itself is hotter too, right? Where it leaves things to be imagined. People were talking about that biting scene as being more erotic than some scenes that were described in detail, I guess. Something about being on a throne, something about being in a tent in a battlefield. I don't know all of it, but they did like that. And they also did like the romantic moments that did happen between Tamlin and Feyre, like when he let his guard down, because apparently he's a very damaged man. But the good times were good. And that includes, I saw mentioned multiple times, a scene where he played the fiddle in a meadow or something at a solstice celebration.
It was like a party. Yeah.
Yeah,
He was playing the fiddle. Was sexier than a man with the instrument getting down.
I say attention equals attraction. If he, especially in a party, if he was up like on a platform, oh God, yeah. That's why ladies love rock stars. It's just because they're on an elevated surface. It goes both ways. Women dancing on tables, same principle. Attention equals attraction. Look it up.
Okay, it's got to get up on an elevated surface.
That's why women are scrambling to be dancing on elevated platforms.
Like, I just need some height.
Yeah, I've learned that through my other podcasting endeavors.
Interesting. And there's also a scene where they skinny dip in a pond of starlight.
Oh,
that sounds kind of romantic.
That
yes,
sounds
I do
like
believe Lucian is also there, but we could ignore him.
you and me and me and you and your friend Steve. Do Steve. That's Oh, poor Lucian.
Awkward.
I think that should have been the real episode. Is Feyre, Tamlin, and Lucian. It's like that throuple.
I think getting to it forward, a little bit further in our segments, that seemed to be most of the fan fiction that I could find.
Yep.
Because he is just kind of there in the book.
Yes. Yeah, he's just always around. And some people I saw shipped her and Lucian first. And I would have mentioned him earlier, but I forgot his name. But he's there.
I think they had a kind of like... Yeah. He seemed to want her dead, which doesn't really make sense because her loving Tamlin broke the whole curse. So, like, why?
Oh, shit. I didn't even know there was a curse. I missed that.
Oh, yes. So the whole...
Okay.
That out of the... Well, it's Beauty and the Beast, right? Like, when she loves him, that breaks the curse. So the curse was the mask. The curse was the evil sorceress lady. Yeah.
That did inflame, like, a mass part of our population when masks were encouraged. So I guess it rings true. True. Sarah J. Maas is an oracle.
Yeah.
she
How
can
dare
see
they
the
infringe
future.
on my rights?
So imagine if you just had it glued to your eyes at all times. Fair. Fair. And some of the other praise on Tamlin, he's a little bit of an idealistic, speaking of like burning it all down. There's a whole fairy caste system that he was less enthused with, and he wanted to make people more equal or not enforce it. I don't know. People like that about him. Some of the other reasons that people were standing these two is like, sure, he did bad things, but like his punishment was not equal to the things that he did, including that his family and court were all killed, and then his girlfriend left him. And the
guy who killed his family. That was
Yes.
each killed each other's families, and they're mad about it. It's like, well, you're even now.
Eye for eye. I didn't realize it went both ways, but I didn't read the plot.
No, I found that out. Doing this research. Apparently, it was like Tamlin's dad killed Rhysand's mom, and then Rhysand's dad killed Tamlin's brother. Like their families kind of killed each other's. But it's like now, you're even.
Yeah. So something along those lines. And with all of that killing going on of families, people really like that he's just a big old sad boy. I mean, who does not love a sad boy? We want our men dark and brooding.
Mm-hmm.
And so he was damaged, and she could fix him. We just want to fix him. But then again, she left him for a more dark and brooding man, though, right?
Even more brooding, yeah.
Because he's got dark hair.
Yes.
He lives underground.
Gray eyes.
Yeah. And he's the Lord of the Night. Or something like that, right? I don't know.
Yep. Yeah, the Night Court.
He's a sexy night fairy.
You use this, they were both traumatized. It's like the trauma. And then he's just the bad guy for the rest of the series.
Yeah, they went through this horrible thing together, and then suddenly he
just sucks forever.
He's irredeemable.
Yeah.
And that gets into some of the fan criticism, which we will get there eventually. And then he's framed as this bad guy. But according to the fans, other characters were just as bad. Feyre's done shitty stuff. Rhysand has done stuff that's not great. Like he date rapes Feyre in the first book or something along those lines.
He does.
Right?
Okay, so he drugs her. So she's hanging out with him under the mountain. Like he's trying to be like, oh, she's my like concubine or whatever. So he puts drugs in the wine so she won't remember. But then she does like a steamy dance and sits on his lap and stuff. And then she doesn't remember it. And it's just like, why?
I did read that Tamlin was cool about it. He was like, she's just doing what she's got to do,
Exactly. Which is like, that's hotter to me. If Rhysand's like, hey, why don't you pretend to be all about me? And she doesn't want to. I don't know. Like, to me, she's like fully, has her own like
agenda.
Control of herself.
Yeah. And then the fact that her boyfriend was so non-threatened that he was like, yeah, she could be giving you a lap dance, but like, I know we're endgame.
Mm-hmm.
Tamlin was set up to be the good guy. He was set up to be
the hero of book 1, right? She didn't know she'd get a sequel.
And then she wrote the sequel and things changed up, and then all of a sudden the tune changed. And you can see that with the fans too, right? And it's interesting to see this. And that's the thing where it's like the fans just kind of follow wherever she points them. So they were all lusting after this man in the first one. And then she's like, well, I got a lot more books to write, so just kidding. Now she doesn't like him. He's awful. He's horrible. Forget everything bad about everybody else and, like, let's just do this new couple. And that was actually some of the critiques of the fans were just kind of like, y'all are fair weathered, man. You liked him in the first one, but then because the author took the story in a different direction, nobody remembered those good things. They just focused on all the bad things that Feyre had through her POV.
Even when Rhysand's doing equally messed up stuff and is still the hero.
Exactly. And that's what people are like, are you guys just like little sheep that are being herded along by your shepherd, Sarah J. Maas? She would just be like, this guy good, this guy bad. Like, don't think about it too hard, you know?
Yeah, and irredeemable is bad forever. You had opportunity to do something interesting there, but...
Exactly.
When you're like fighting literal evil because it's a fantasy novel.
Right. Okay, maybe that's why it's sticking with me, because in fantasy, evil and good are usually very clear-cut. Very clear-cut. But this guy went from being all good to all bad, bad, bad. He's bad, bad, bad. I don't know, but it's just interesting. That kind of lines up to the reason of why I probably won't ever read it. And like some other people called out too, the critiques of just kind of how Sarah J. Maas structures her story is that she's got a thing for having her protagonists fall for their second love, right? So there's so much emphasis on first love. And this is actually where it deviates from Twilight. So props Sarah on that. But to make that second love more legitimate or more easy to embrace, she just kind of burns scorched earth policies. The first love, right? They can't have anything redeemable about them. They have to be completely bad.
I guess, yeah, just to like alleviate any kind of guilt that Feyre might have, or the reader reading from Feyre's perspective. Yeah. Because, yeah, they could have just grown apart. Maybe they just weren't as compatible as they thought they were going to be. But
right.
He had to be bad fully.
Right. Yeah. But that would be so much sexier, wouldn't it be? If she's like kind of got her new boyfriend, but she's still kind of drawn to the other one. There could be so many moments of tension in that too. Like moments where the old spark kind of flamed up. And I think that would probably translate to what real life experience is. But what do I know? I'm just some idiot with a podcast. And
you're not fair. You don't got wings.
I don't have wings. Yeah, there's no benchmark to having a podcast, unlike being a high fae.
Well, I think it's also, this is like a fated mate situation where you have your like one true love and stuff. So
oh yeah, I forgot about the imprinting thing.
See, but that could have been interesting because like, okay, she spent time with Rhysand. He's like, guess what? We're meant to be. And then you've got this boyfriend that you also kind of love, but then you're like soulmates with someone else. How do you navigate that?
That's very Bella Swan, though. It's like, we would have been together and happy forever if it wasn't for Edward. It's out of this world love. Out of this world love.
Exactly. Yeah, so later in the books. Okay, so the books set Rhysand up as like consent king. You can only do whatever you want. Just do what you choose to do. Except if you get pregnant, I will not tell you. So he knows that Feyre is pregnant with a potentially life-threatening, because they gotta get pregnant, because like, what is a happy ending without children? So he knows she's pregnant with a potentially life-threatening pregnancy, keeps it to himself, just doesn't tell her.
Until when? How does she know?
I guess he tells her eventually. I guess she notices. I don't know. He puts like a shield on. He uses magic to like hide it from her.
She's like 8 months pregnant and doesn't know?
Yeah, he's just making decisions with this knowledge he doesn't have.
Ooh, yeah, that's a problematic. Uh-oh.
Yeah,
we're going to be doing a podcast about him in a couple books. Be like the couples that never were. Rhysand, whatever his name is.
I think that series is over, though. She's doing the spin-offs now. Her sisters are getting boyfriends. Fairy boyfriends.
Oh, her sisters?
Mm-hmm.
Her wicked stepsisters?
Yeah.
Even though they were real sisters?
Yep.
I think the real ship we should have done here was Tamlin and Lucien. And now that we know the story better, that's going to be added to our episode list because I think, and I would throw Ricelin, whatever his name is, I throw him in there too. I think there's tension between Tamlin.
Ooh, and Rhysand, because they like hate each other. Yeah.
They were childhood friends. I saw that mentioned somewhere. Childhood friends / potential first loves. And I was like, oh, that's a thread we got to pull later.
That's way more interesting.
And erotic.
Right. He had to like break this curse or whatever. I think it said human woman. So I think he did. He was kind of stuck.
Oh, is that why he abducted her?
Oh, yeah, this is messed up. So Amarantha, the like evil sorceress lady, wanted to be with Tamlin, but Tamlin was like, no, I'd rather fuck a woman, like a human woman than you.
The lowly human woman.
Yes. Well, because I literally listened to a podcast where they talked about this, so I know. But because her like sister or whatever married a human and then he like killed her. So it was like very personal. So she's like, okay, if that's what you want. So that's what the curse was like hinged on. He had to get a human woman to love him by a certain date or they all died or I don't know, whatever. So he was sending fairies out. It had to be a human woman that killed a fairy for some reason. So he was sending fairies out as like beasts so that human women would kill them. And then he would like try to seduce them. He didn't do a good job though. Like he wasn't even trying that hard to seduce her.
Yeah, that was a very fucked up situation. They were like, hey friend, go out there. Here's just being like bait.
He just sacrificed a bunch of fairies for this. Like, that's crazy.
How do you talk them into that?
Yeah. Just die for your people,
hey,
I guess. Yeah.
Hey,
I
buddy.
might bang the chick that kills you.
Yeah, I was like, I just really need to get laid. So can you go out and potentially die? Which this is completely off topic, but I did watch an Impractical Jokers episode today where a man flossed a guy. The premise of Impractical Jokers, not where I thought this episode would go today, is that they have to embarrass themselves in public. And so the challenge was to get somebody else to floss your teeth. So one of the main comedy guys was like, well, how am I going to do this? And so he pulled the guy over and he was like, dude, I'm going to meet this girl. I've had a crush on her for forever. And there's something in my teeth and I just can't get it. Can you floss my teeth for me? And then the guys watching were like, of course that works because every guy will always help another guy when it comes to like getting a girl. And I'm just like, this is the ultimate version of that. He was like, go out, run around in the human world. You might die, but I need you to die so I can get laid.
Yeah.
Dear God. What does A Court of Roses and Thorns have in common with Impractical Jokers?
Connecting the dots, yeah. But apparently Lucian is kind of like opposed to Feyre, which is like she might save your life. What is your deal?
Yeah.
You hate her.
Apparently she was pretty whiny, so maybe that's why. But that whininess did not stop people from fantasizing about these two getting together.
No, and I did try to look up. I thought there might be some fan fiction. I did have some issues finding some. I mean, it's out there. You gotta find it. It was just difficult finding stuff that had Feyre / Tamlin that didn't also have Feyre / Rhysand. You know, there's just history. There's a lot of books. So by looking for Feyre Tamlin removing Feyre Rhysand, I found the top fan fiction with the most hits to be The Devil's Dance by Green Zeus, which seemed to be mostly just a retelling of the first book with more steamy sex scenes, including threesomes with Feyre Tamlin and then the Lucian character that we've been discussing. So people kind of like
hell yeah,
you know?
Yeah, they pegged it. Me and you and your friend Steve. Lucian.
Seem to be a lot of them. So
good for Lucian. He's getting way more action in the fan fiction world. But I guess that's true of most characters.
Yeah. Well, actually, especially because of just how I live my life. I think he set up that one of his mates is actually one of Feyre's shitty sisters. The
oh no,
gardening one, but she wants nothing to do with him. So at least he can get laid in this circumstance.
There you go.
So good for him.
Oh, this book. I think before we get to the riddle to see if I can save all of Fatum, I think it's time to give this couple their true pairing score. And Emily, what do you give Feyre and Tamlin?
I guess I gotta give them. It's rough because I think they definitely had something there at first because they had to. The first love doesn't always pan out. You know, it is what it is. So I want to give them, I don't know, maybe like a 4 masquerade mask. 4 out of 10.
Masquerade masks. Oh, that's good. Yeah, 4 out of 10.
Yeah, you know, there was some there at first, but just it wasn't meant to be.
I think that's fair. I am actually going to give this couple 1 out of 3,950,000,000 because this couple is really not like the other girls. They're just like so different than the other 3.9 billion women on the planet. They're just not like them. So that's why it's 1 out of 4 billion almost.
Not like the other girls.
This couple is so special, I guess. It's just so rare. It's not like the other girls.
She wears pants.
All of them. There's no other women that wear pants. Or who have ever wanted to wear pants, but felt like they couldn't because of society. So yeah, that's what I give it. And I don't know if that's necessarily for this book or this couple or this book series, but that's what I give it.
You gotta go with your heart.
Gotta go with my heart. Just like Feyre. And I'm going to do the sexy, dark Phantom of the Opera character. Everybody just wants Christine to get with the Phantom. That's what this is all about. We're all still working through that trauma.
The saddest boy. Okay.
The saddest boy. We can fix him. That's gonna be the theme of the show. We can fix him. Okay, I'm ready. Can I see Fatum? This is a special segment.
Can you do it?
At the end.
Here's the riddle. There are those who seek me a lifetime, but we never meet. And those I kiss, but who trample me beneath ungrateful feet. At times I seem to favor the clever and the fair, but I bless all those who are brave enough to dare.
Oh my
By
God,
large, my ministration. What?
Is it love?
It is in fact love.
Is it?
Love?
I don't know.
It is love. Yes, you have destroyed Amaranth. You've freed the Fae.
I really?
Yes, it is love.
I didn't even hear the whole poem. That's hilarious.
You didn't even get through the rest of it. Yeah, good job. That's what happens when you learn how to read. That was the podcast I listened to. They're like, she gets the easiest riddle and she doesn't solve it.
I still didn't believe you until I separately Googled it. I was like, Emily's just gassing me up. That's what sisters do. Holy shit. But scorned, I become a difficult beast to defeat. Oh, jeez. When I kill, I do it slow. Yeah. Okay. Well, I think it's time we kill this episode nice and slowly. Mm-hmm. A court of thorns and roses.
Thorns is roses.
And I'm sure this won't be the last of this world that we revisit. But I think when we come back, for something, it's going to be way gayer and way funner.
It's what the books need. Again, make it gay.
Make it gay.
It's not gay at all. I can tell you about that criticism as well.
Thank you for listening. I'm going to do this part because I have practiced. Leave us a rating or a review. If you enjoyed it, please send it to someone else who is a Feylin fan or somebody who is the ship name for Feyre and Rhys is Fair Rhys. Get it? And that means her more like a fairy. So whoever they stan, whatever, send this to them and get their thoughts, or just let us know. Send us a message on the texting thing that we'll have turned on to let us know what you think about it, or please correct us because we know nothing about this court of rose and thorns. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time. Remember, ship happens.